macro fixing. I mean, it's good for you to do that and give them some transition period before it becomes casino complexes and things like that. But I would look at it as a very macro level and see what it means to do a land justice. And that's something that I'm looking forward to learning here at Harvard on those things. Sure. We still have time, but
Yeah,
7 more minutes and then we're on
we're
time.
so efficient. We're uber efficient.
We have to be.
So maybe start on this side of the room.
These people have a lot of things to do first.
Give to you, so please.
Vada from Tufts University. So I really love your plan, but it seems that there is an established institution and that like stand in the way. So I guess one question is like why is this institution so successful at preventing the prosperity competitive?
Oh, you should have come to part-time politics yesterday. Yes, I'll answer your question.
And
I understand.
Is there anything that we as Thai citizens can do?
Okay, thank you.
Please, sir.
Sawadee Pramod Supapanya, freelance scholar and visitors to Boston.
Okay.
And my question is, to my understanding, since the first national plan in 1963, and happened to me that the rich and the poor gap widening and widening, how you ensure that your crisis model would turn around at least narrowing that gap. Thank you.
One chance over here. A very enthusiastic young lady in the back. Okay, lady.
Thank you so much. My name is Ais Juthapornupiti. I remember you mentioned about startup and you endorse tech community. And I also remember you suggest that startup, the owner of startup should move out of the country in order to grow at scale. And I would like to ask from your knowledge of your resources, how would you help endorse them to grow at scale if you want to push this forward to a public of people in Thailand? And I actually own a startup company here too, and I did what you suggest. I moved out of the country to start a business here.
Maybe one.
Someone way ahead of the curve.
One more online.
Sorry.
Excellent. He's getting his steps in.
We have a question from a live audience in Thailand.
That's another thing that we talked about. Obviously, you have to follow your heart, but take your brain with you. And obviously, we're trying to, come up with innovative ideas to turn crisis into competitiveness. We have to think, without the constraints first and work backwards on how to fix the constraints, whether it's legal, whether it's financial, whether it's political will. Which goes back to the first thing is on the origin of these independent organizations. Are they appointed or are they linked to the people in any way? Second is on the transparency. Obviously, there was a court order to dissolve political parties on and on, but you're never allowed to criticize the court. So there's no transparency on arguing back or using logic to really talk about whether it's legal, whether it makes sense, whether it's logical or not. And the third one is about accountability. How do you make sure that, such a very big power, 9 people, 5 people commission, whether it's election commission, whether it's anti-corruption commission, whether it's the court, just 7 to 9 people can, get rid of election winner and also the prime minister. Sethakawicin was also removed. So it's not just a partisan issue, it's a bipartisan issue. But if you don't take care of the origin, the transparency, and the accountability of their decision, then we can never move beyond the cycle, the vicious cycle that we see. And obviously, winning elections to be in the government and have enough votes to amend the constitution or to amend laws is something that is a stepping stone towards that institutional reform, constitutional justice that we were talking about. In terms of 1963, the Papat first plan on equality. I read that, and then I was working in the government before coming to the Kennedy School. I think that was maybe the 5th version, the 6th version, and they were still talking about inequality. And then it was when I reached Kennedy School, then I started to learn that inequality comes in various ways. Income equality is one, and that's usually what they talk about, measured by Gini coefficient. But then there's wealth inequality, land inequality, resource inequality, public health inequality, education inequality, access to power inequality. So if you just touch on just one particular popular inequality KPI, which the government talks about a lot, which is the income inequality, and you look at the Gini coefficient, looks okay. It's not that bad. But the devils is in the detail, just as the first slide that I showed you in terms of deposit, in terms of land ownership. That's when you started to understand, inequality is not income. And when the government talks about Gini coefficient, it's not that bad. But if you look at all these land ownership concentration, wealth concentration, over centralization in Bangkok public schools, that's when you start to understand that if this plan becomes the 100th plan, the gap is not going to go away. And that's why when we were campaigning, we tackled the reform, the structure, the access to land ownership and things like that, and not just looking at the top quintile and the bottom quintile when it comes to income equality. Last one was about unicorn, moving forward. The thing is, there's 2 animals that stop unicorn happening in Thailand, startups. The first one is the tiger, and the second one is the elephant. The bureaucracy of doing a lot of paper when you are trying to get grants from the government to be a startup, it improved a lot, to be fair. But in order for you to get into digital innovation or Thailand 4.0 grant or the startup grant, it's like a huge amount of pieces of paper that you need to do, and many criteria and many conditions, and also not very regional ambition focus. So that's why I felt like you have to move fast and break things. Yeah, that's what startup is all about. You are disrupting things. It has to be very fast, very flexible in the way you want to do it. That's why you should be anywhere in the world as long as you are linked to Thailand. That's how I'm going to change the innovation policy once I become the prime minister 10 years from now.